Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from Aman Talks NRL SuperCoach. In today's video, going to go through my updated team reveal. Having had a full weekend of trial games, we now know a little bit more information and whatnot, so I thought I wanted to show you guys what my updated team does look like. It is slightly different from the very first one that I did put out on the channel. Of course, a lot of things have changed in between that first video, mainly being around the new stat system, but of course we've seen a few extra things happen with players around the NRL in the last few weeks as well, so that has slightly changed my team. So I just wanted to give you an update as to where it's currently sitting at. Recording this on Monday morning just after all of those trial games, so we're roughly 2 weeks out from the start of the Las Vegas games, so I think it's a good period of time to kind of look at an updated team, and we'll of course probably have an updated team again before the start of that Las Vegas, because we will get proper round 1 TLT at that point in time. But if you do enjoy the video, please do consider subscribing and do like the video as well. We're on the way to get into 6,000 subscribers, which is awesome achievement. So I really do appreciate it from you all, the support you've shown so far this preseason. Go also follow me on Instagram, X, and also do check me out on Patreon, where I'll be posting a lot more stuff this preseason, a lot of spreadsheets where I'm tracking all of the trial scores, including some extra stats around base stats, base power stats, and a lot of player deep dives. You can follow my team as well throughout the entire season actually on Patreon as well. So do check that out as well, but let's get into the video. So of course, if you've been following some of my content over the last couple of weeks, or mainly in the last week, you would know of course about the major change in SuperCoach this season being the change in the stat system provider, which is more aligned to the one that provides the official NRL stats. And what that basically has meant, things like try assists, line break assists, is mainly used for last pass. So what you're seeing is the reduction of the fullbacks in SuperCoach in terms of how much points output they'll probably get, but very slightly, and only really to begin the start of the season. I think that's the main thing I've tried to do, is not completely go 180 in how I wanted to build my team post the stats system update, because I think it's a bit dangerous, because as you saw over the weekend, Scott Drinkwater still posted 112 SuperCoach points. These gun fullbacks are still going to be good. It's just that on a value basis, they're probably all slightly overvalued to start the season, and that meant that other players like your hookers, middle forwards, and some of your centers, like pure centers in the game, are probably going to be slightly undervalued. So of course I've tried to balance my team to integrate that in, but otherwise I wanted to try to not go too far in one direction and try to still maintain the balance. And you know, if you've heard some of my content as well, I'm trying not to overthink this year, just try to keep things a bit more simple, and hopefully that bodes well for me. So starting very simple at hooker, Brandon Smith the cheapie, 235k. I don't really want to spend too much more in that position. If I have enough money and I'm happy with the rest of my team, I'm okay to maybe go up to a Reed Marnie. Reed Marnie scored 70 points over the weekend. Not a lot in base, that's about 25, 26 points in base, but a lot of attack, and he looked good for the Cowboys. So I think what I want to see mainly is in round 1 TLT for Vegas is Sonny Luke on the bench. Maybe that potentially eats into Reed Marnie's minutes. It's very hard to track full accurate minutes during the preseason trial games because they often use a bigger squad. So that's probably the one thing I wanted to wait and see on. But I'm happy to go with a little bit of a cheaper hooker in Brandon Smith to start off with. And I've upgraded Reed Marnie, who was my former starting hooker, to Harry Grant. Harry Grant was already probably undervalued, and already there was a part of me that wanted him. The fact that this scoring change has come in meant I think Grant is going to become an even better option. Using his restated average from last year, he was going to gain an extra 4.7 points if he was scoring his average from last year under the new system. And this was a down Harry Grant year, so he's already about 5 points undervalued. If you expect a bounce back from him as well, Melbourne don't have a bye up until all the way till round 12, so no concerns there. He's going to be my main guy all the way through to Origin, and then we can reassess from there. Just feels like a nice comfy blanket. Don't really need to worry about that position. So Harry Grant is pretty locked in, I would say, into my team at this point in time. Front row forward, honestly, it hasn't changed. It's the same 4 front row forward that I had in my previous video. So Payne Haas, I think he's been pretty locked in. He was going to get a big bump in his average as well, up by about 3 points. And of course, we know that he's good, solid, safe captaincy option, good draw to start the first 6 rounds as well. So I'm pretty happy with Payne Haas as well. Trey Mooney looked really good over the weekend in the Indigenous All-Stars game. Shout out to the SE Whisperer for these particular stats, but Trey Mooney in that trial game yesterday had 13 runs for over 100 meters, 42 tackles as well, 45 of that post-contact meters, which doesn't mean a whole lot, but of course it means a few runs over 8 meters. I just think Mooney at that price, the dual status, I think he's going to get decent minutes for the Knights as well. I think he's going to be someone who punches out like mid-50s to low 60s is my gut feel. And I think he's going to be a good option SuperCoach wise. So I'm pretty happy to lock him in. Obviously, one of the omissions that you can see across the whole forward pack is someone like a Toby Couchman. Toby Couchman was definitely going to benefit a lot from this change in the scoring system. I'll quickly pull up what his change in average was going to be based on last year. And again, I've got a full spreadsheet which has got all of the players' averages from last year, what their restated averages are, as well as dollar price value. So if that's something you're interested in, you can also access that from the Patreon. So Toby Couchman was going to go up about 5 points in value. And he was already probably undervalued as well. He had some injury affected games. So he's someone who I have been interested in trying to fit into the squad as well. I just haven't quite made it work. And I think what I was noticing was that by trying to fit in the Couchman, I was sacrificing just a little bit in my centers, and particularly in the fourth center spot. Now, of course, there are other sacrifices I could make in my team to be able to tweak that. But just letting you know that Couchman, he's not here in this forward pack. Definitely someone I'm very interested in though. And what I would ideally like, to be honest, is having one of Couchman and Mooney in alternate positions. We expect someone like a Tino to get front row forward status as well, which then makes him and Trey Mooney interchangeable, which is the main thing I'm looking for. Two players who can interchange between the front row and second row. But Toby Couchman, I think, is someone I'm very interested in. Didn't post massive scores over the weekend. He had about 47 points from this trial, all in base power, which is kind of what you expect from a Couchman. Both him and his brother as well, both good middle forwards there for the Dragons. So that's probably the big omission from the front row forward that I'm still thinking I would like to include if I could. Taniela Paseka, I think, is just going to be good value. He hasn't changed since my round one team, so I don't think he's really going anywhere. If you want to see, I guess, more of a breakdown of him, you can check out the other video. But just going back to last year, he only played 3 games and averaged 48. His restated average would have been 52, so he would have gone up about 4 points. But he's traditionally been someone who averages around the mid-50s, and he's priced very cheap at 328k. So I think I'm not trying to overthink it. Just keep him in there. That fourth front row forward spot, I've just gone for enough at the moment in Miles Martin. Again, got the dual status, but I'm happy to upgrade here as well if I think that there's a good worthwhile option. You've got like a Jack Hetherington from the Melbourne Storm who got about 42 points in base stats over the weekend for the trial game. So if he gets a bench spot for the Storm, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe someone like him makes his way in there. You've also got like a Bunty Afoa from the West Tigers that I also could consider. I don't mind having one enough though to start the season, but as we'll talk about, I'm somewhat thinking of also maybe having that enough in my centers, so that's still something to be determined. I will try to have at least one enough. I'm not trying to force enough in, I should say. If there's enough good cheapies, then I'll pick all the cheapies, but I like it from the ability to be able to do the vice captain loophole throughout the season. So at the moment, a cheap guy, but it's a Miles Martin. It probably will end up like a Jack Hetherington or maybe like a Bunty or forward type. Nothing really too much more there. Jesse Colquhoun from the Sharks is an option at around that low 30k mark, but I think he wasn't going to get a huge uptick in his average from the restated numbers. And you also do have a Cam McInnes who's going to be lurking and coming back, and he's just that kind of guy who I would be thinking will come back from injury on time, if not earlier. So I feel like Colquhoun's got maybe a bit of a shorter shelf life. I think he should be getting at least the first 6 to 8 weeks, I would expect. But either way, I expect him to be a bit of a slow burn, so I'm kind of okay to sacrifice him, I guess, and not have to pick him to start off with. Second row forward, so you've got Tina Sumalawi, Isaiah Yeo, Dave Fifita, Patson from the Titans, Lasati, and Cooper Bye. Just on that bench, I'm pretty set on that bench, I think. So Lasati scored 58 Supercoach points over the weekend, a lot of that in base power stats. So he had about 41 tackles. So Lasati, I think if he gets the right edge spot for the Storm, I'll be pretty happy, I think, to lock him in. Patson played in the Indigenous All-Stars game. Don't have the trial scores from that game just yet at the time of recording, but expected to win a starting edge spot for the Titans at 275k looks to be decent value. And then Cooper Bye knocked out about 39 points in his trial game over the weekend in Supercoach points off, a few limited minutes. So I think he'll be a bit of a slow burn, but someone, again, I'm happy to kind of plug in there and offer a bit of a cash generation. Second row forward is a spot I've been actually tinkering a lot with. So Dave Fifita hasn't changed since my my first team reveal. I believe Tina wasn't in my first one, but pretty much ever since I recorded that first video, I've had Tino in there. Now, Tino wasn't going to be like a big improver in terms of the averages, so I'll quickly have a look at what his numbers were. He was only going up about 0.2 points. So it's not like this change in system is seeing Tino absolutely massively be a massive value player, I should say. I just like him. I just think he's a good, safe, reliable Supercoach option. Yes, the price is a little bit expensive. You're not off getting value. So he's someone who, again, I've been pretty locked into, so I try not to overthink it and just like change it all up. But, I'm missing someone a bit more mid-range here. Maybe that spot could be a Couchman. That frees up $100,000. You could go down to like a Lukey. I'm cooling a little bit on Jermaine McEwen just because the minutes are a little bit up for debate. But Lukey has looked good in his couple of trial games as well. So, and he's someone who's always kind of tempted me as well. We know that the Cowboys have got a good draw. He's got the ability to get attacking stats, Lukey. So I'm not absolutely locked into that Tino spot, but I've had him for such a long time. It feels hard to get rid of him. Isaiah, of course, is the new addition since the last time I recorded a team review. He's going to benefit massively from the change in the scoring system. He was going to go up about 6.1 points under the new restated system. Penrith have got a tough draw to start the season as well, so you expect that to be good for someone like an Isaiah as a middle forward. I put a deep dive on Isaiah on my Patreon as well, but I think he was already a little bit undervalued because I believe his average was 64, just over 64, if you take out his games during that origin period where he was either playing lower minutes. Otherwise, he was averaging about 64. So again, if you apply that kind of average increase, I expect him to be someone averaging around 70, priced at about 62.5. So at 610k is a good value proposition. Probably would take him over someone like an Angus Crichton, who I just feel like take the better value proposition and probably better consistency in an Isaiah Yeo. So I've gone two guns here. As I said, not absolutely locked in. I think Isaiah Yeo is pretty safely locked in there. Fifita is pretty safe in there as well. And the bench, as I've said, I'm pretty locked into. It's that Tino spot. To free up that money from Tino to then upgrade elsewhere in the team. That's probably the main decision I'm debating, because I do think there are other good options that you can consider at cheaper. Like you've got Couchman, who I've mentioned I'm pretty keen on. You've also got like a Lukey there. You've also got a whole heap of other second row forwards. But Tino, I don't know, he just gives me good vibes. I don't know. Obviously, Jamin Jolliffe is going to be out for the Titans now. He's picked up an ACL over the preseason. Tino should get that dual status as well. You know, you could consider like a Kolomatangi instead, and then put get Kolomatangi at the front row spot, get Mooney down to your second row forward. I guess that's probably one of the things as well that I'm slightly thinking about. You know, there's no Terrell May, for example, in this build, who's got the bye in round 1. But if I want to get up to a Terrell May, you know, maybe someone like a Tino or an Isaiah Yeo via duels is the way that I do it. But I don't mind having a little bit more price in that second row forward spot, because I think there's going to be a lot of options to consider, and we just don't quite know what's going to play out with this whole change in the stat system. We think it's going to benefit the middle forwards and the hookers and the centers, and if it plays out and all of a sudden someone comes from the clouds and is like, oh my god, this guy's must have, I don't mind having a bit of money in that second row forward spot to play around with. Well, maybe Tino's fine, but maybe someone who's 100k cheaper like Couchman, maybe Couchman comes out and just like punches out 70s, and I'm like, they give me the same thing, but they're 100k price difference. I'll make that swap maybe later earlier in the season. So that's some of the things I'm thinking about with that second or forward position. But otherwise, that's the forwards of my team. Now coming on to the backs. Now this is funny because the last positional analysis video I recorded was the halfback positional analysis, and in that video I said I'm not so sure if I want to be going the double cheapy halfback route with Daniel Atkinson and Ethan Sanders, but here it is. It's in my team as it currently stands. Although I will caveat, I've got Nathan Cleary now at my flex spot. So Sanders I've kind of had for pretty much all of the preseason. So he's goal kicking for a good Raiders team, so I'm kind of happy to lock him in. Atkinson was the one I wasn't like 100% sure about. Look, he's a cheapie. He's priced at about 20.5 points. I know that the Dragons played like a pretty weakened team over the trials in the Rabbitohs, but I still liked what I saw from Atkinson. He would have scored 56 Supercoach points over the weekend, had a try assist. You've got 21 tackles here, a couple of tackle busts, an offload, a few runs in there, a few errors actually as well. But as I said, he would have scored 56 points, 34 base power, which is kind of, obviously it's not huge, but for a cheapie half, having a floor of around 26 to call it 30, 35 is not bad. He shouldn't be losing out on money. And I just think that he's a decent option. And I'll talk about this maybe in conjunction with the cheapie centers. I'm just not as sure about some of those cheapie centers. Most of them are okay. But what I'm thinking is, like, I think Setu 2 is fine. I think he should get a starting spot for the Dragons on the wing. Fayomani of the Titans as well, I think is fine. It's that third spot, Tom Chester, Makasini. That's where I'm like a little bit uncertain on what's the way that I go. Because Tom Chester looks like he's going to get a spot for round 1 for Las Vegas for the Cowboys. But we know that Zach Laybutt is suspended for the first 2 games. Come the third game, Laybutt could go straight in and Chester could all of a sudden be missing out and you're just stuck with him there. Makasini was awesome over the trials weekend. He scored a hat-trick, scored like over 110 Supercoach points. We know that there's competition there with Giles Skelton. Taruva's not getting displaced on the other wing, so it's really that Skelton left wing spot. Now, if Makasini comes in, that's great. But again, he has the bye round 1. So we just don't know for sure to start off with. So what I'm kind of wondering is, do I instead take that Tom Chester spot out and maybe go with that Nuff? So you know how I had that Nuff in front row? Maybe just put a Nuff there in like a duel. Or I just go with the Tom Chester or a Makasini to start off with. But or I just upgrade that position. And that's kind of the things I'm wondering about. So because I'm not sure on that kind of that first bench spot on the center's position, and in terms of a cheapie, I'm wondering, do I just take that, what I think is a much more reliable cheapie in like an Atkinson, and then again, it doesn't look visually great, but then I still have a Nathan Cleary at flex. I think Atkinson looks like, when I crunched the numbers, he was averaging around in the mid 40s in his 80-minute games throughout his halves career. And I'm thinking, okay, that's about 20 points of value. Again, bit of a slow burn, but you've got that flex position where I've got Cleary sitting there. If Atkinson or Sanders flops, the play would be swap Cleary back up to my halfback spot, and then I can just trade out one of the other two cheapies for anyone. Like, for example, if a Makasini turns out to be awesome, I can just go Cleary out to halfback and then trade one of those two cheapie halves to like a Makasini or whatever maybe cheap center I'd potentially miss out on. So that's kind of why I'm thinking it's not necessarily about double cheapie. What I'm now thinking is just look at the cheapies all in a collective bucket and who are the good ones. I've identified the ones in second or forward that I like. The centers, I think, set to Tufe, Marnie should be fine. It's just that other one of like Tom Chester, Makasini, wasn't so sure about. And what I found was that by being able to put in an Atkinson there, it just helped me make the rest of the team look better. And I think that's the thing. It's like one small sacrifice, but again, I don't think it's a massive sacrifice. I still have got like a Nathan Cleary, best halfback in the game. And then, yeah, it looks visually not great on paper, but I'm thinking that it's going to be better for my overall squad balance. So that's the way that I've gone at the moment. Let me know in the comments what you guys are thinking about whether to double cheapie halfback or not. I think I was a bit encouraged by what I saw over the weekend, though. That helped me make that decision to bring in an Atkinson. 5'8", I've got Munster and Pezzett. Munster hasn't really changed too much during the preseason in my team. I think a lot of people are expecting someone like a Dylan Brown to get that 5'8" dual status, which I think, by the way, that Supercoach are posting and what I've read in some articles, he's trending towards getting that. There will need to be a decision, I think, made at that point, because going Munster to dual bags is about 520, 530k. It'll free up 150k. All of a sudden, that could turn Brian To'o into like an absolute gun. And sorry, I should have mentioned this already in the video. I've got 111k in the bank with this particular squad build. So there is money to move around. There is a bit of flexibility. So for example, Brian To'o can go up to like a 710k center. So there's a lot of flexibility still remaining within this team. And I think that's the other thing that I liked doing with that cheapie halfback route. It meant that I had so much money to play with elsewhere in my team and still feel like I can get a gun like Cleary, Munster, gun centers, 2 gun second row forwards, Harry Grant, Payne Haas, etc. All those guys who I do really like. So I think Dillbags should be somewhat underpriced, given that he's had a bit of a down year last year. The Knights though, man, like 0 points scored over the trials week, and I believe that was the first time in a trials game that a team has been held scoreless. Their attack is still not, I'm still not sure about their attack. So I know Dillbag is probably a value play, but Munster was locked into from the beginning, and I'm just thinking, will I regret it if I instead go with the Dillbags, who probably is better value, but Munster comes out and kills it? Munster was going to lose about 2 or 3 points to this change in the stat system, so nothing crazy. But again, he's just a safety blanket. He's the best in the position, in my opinion. No buy until round 12. Good draw. You just know what you're going to get from Munster, who'll get you between 65 and 70 basically every week, and I just don't have a headache there. So that's why at the moment I've defaulted back to Munster, and I've tried to build a team with Munster rather than going a little bit cheaper at that 5'8" spot. Jonah Pezzett, I think, is going to be pretty locked in as well. Parramatta did look very good yesterday over the trials weekend on Sunday. So, again, he was more of the controlling half in that game. I expect with Mitch Moses back in that Pezzett will be more of the running half, and I think that will be better for a Supercoach scoring. Looking at the centres, predominantly the main ones on field, not the ones on the bench, because I've kind of spoken through them already. Herbie Farnworth, Cale Iro, Latrell Mitchell, and Brian To'o. So, of course, I've got 3 actual centres in. Look, Herbie, I think, will be pretty locked in now. Just given the change in the stat system, we already were thinking that Herbie was going to be a very, very good option and a very difficult fade. So I'm just going to quickly look at what Herbie's restated average was going to be. So he averaged 84.4 last year. Under the new system, it would have been 90.7, 6.3 points in value. So purely on face value, he's about 62k underpriced. Now, of course, it's just dependent on whether you think he's going to average 84 again from last year, hence 90.7. But I think it's a good attacking team in the Dolphins. He's one of the main men in the backline for them. I just think we've had new change in system. We just need to go and pick Herbie Farnworth. So he's pretty locked in. Cale Iro, I was always keen on in the preseason. I mentioned I've got a deep dive on Cale Iro on my Patreon. I don't expect the attacking stats to continue at the rate that it was last year. But again, he's going to benefit from this change in the scoring system. If I have a quick look here, Cale Iro is going to go up 6.2 points a game based on the restated numbers. And I think he's just a gun player who's on the up. So I just think lock him into the team. You'll notice there's no Val Holmes. I did have Val Holmes for a while, but this whole thing with his hamstring has kind of scared me a little bit. And given that he plays in that Las Vegas game, I'm a little bit concerned about locking all that money into him and then not having that money available to fix other things in the team in the main TLT round 1. So for the time being, I've decided to not go with Val. Just that hamstring has slightly scared me off. Latrell Mitchell, I've been pretty locked into. Latrell actually was going to lose points under the new system. He would have lost about 0.2 points. So again, not much, but a lot of that is probably due to the fact that he was playing at fullback, getting sweep assists. If he's playing at left center, you expect him to be getting more of those tap on last pass try assists. Goal kicking for what we expect to be an improving Rabbitohs outfit as well. I've been pretty locked into Latrell all preseason. This fourth gun center spot in Brian To'o, I'm not overly convinced on. I just defaulted back to To'o because I had him again in my early round 1 team, and I thought, look, if you're not sure, why don't you just go back to one of the guys that you had from the beginning? He's not a massive difference in terms of the new systems, stat system, I should say. He's going to go up about 2.1 points based on his restated averages. He had a down year as well, so again, it's kind of expecting a bounce back from him. But as I said, 110k in the bank in this build, so I've got up to 710k to spend on a center. There are guys like Stephen Crichton who are putting their hands up, who should be now full-time goal kicker for the Bulldogs, getting some benefit from that last pass change as well. You've got plenty of other guys there. You've got like a Greg Marzu, who, shout out to Marzu, he powered 58 points over the weekend. So again, it looks like the floor is still there for Marzu. We just don't know what the backline will be looking like for the Newcastle Knights. And again, yes, he's a good floor guy, but the attack is not the best in terms of the Knights. So Marzu's an option, but I haven't locked him in. I've got Brian To'o here as it currently stands. You still do have guys like Sam Stonestreet, who I could also consider from the Sharks. Plenty of guys in that 600k range as well. You've got like Casey McLean, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. Ideally, what I would probably do, if I had full confirmation on Val's fitness, I would just free up 20k from elsewhere and use all of that money I've got in the bank to go To'o to Val Holmes. But I mentioned the reasons why I don't currently have Val Holmes. So that's the centers. Fullbacks, Keanu Kinney, not going anywhere. He looked decent enough in the trials, but he's so underpriced. I think I'm happy to just lock him in from round 1. Suafar Longo. So of course, what you'll notice is there's no gun fullback, no like 750k plus, no Tom Trbojevic, no Drinkwater, Teddy, Walsh, all those kind of guys. That's mainly just down to this change in the scoring system. But part of me still does think that that is a spot worthwhile targeting. I know they're going to be slightly overvalued to begin the season, but I think, look, Suafar Longo, I'm still not 100% locked into. What I'm waiting and seeing on is on Trey Fuller. So there were some reports yesterday that he's firming to become the starting fullback for the Dolphins. He looked really good in the Indigenous All-Stars game as well. If Trey Fuller is a starting fullback, I will 100% be starting with Trey Fuller, in my opinion. He's just so underpriced for what he delivers. He's priced at 57. Of course, he averaged in his 4 games last year of 88. He's just a high work rate guy though. So his amended average would have been 87. Let's just give him a 70 average just to be kind of a bit more conservative. He's still 13 points underpriced. So Trey Fuller is the big one. I'd be very much more keen on Trey Fuller than I would be a Suafar Longo. Maybe there's a play there to go Kinney, Suafar Longo and Trey Fuller. But I'm happy to, I think I'm okay to not start with Longo if I don't have to. I've just defaulted to him because it fits the squad structure ideally here. And then I've got Nathan Cleary. Now on that gun halfback spot, I think Mitch Moses was the guy who I originally had, but this whole change in the scoring system has slightly concerned me. I know he should gain points in value from goal kicking, but he was a big loser of the change in stat system. So if you look at his numbers from last year, so his average last year was 55.5. Under the new system, it would have been 48.7. So he would have lost 6.8 points. Again, I expect him to gain 9 to 10 points a game in goal kicking. So if you net everything off, he's still probably 2 to 3, 4 points undervalued. But then I was thinking, okay, that 10-point value proposition is now gone down to about 4 or 3. Yes, the Eels looked good yesterday, so maybe I'm overthinking it. But I was very keen on Jaden Campbell, and I mentioned that in the halfback video. So Campbell still could be an option, but what happened was when I tinkered with the team, I had the money to afford Cleary. And as I said in the halfback video, I was 60-40 to not going with him, but just knowing that I fit him in, and I was kind of happy with the rest of the team, I just thought, why overthink it? I know this is a guy I'm going to want. Yes, the draw is tough. I may not captain him a lot, but my base expectation is if I start with Cleary, I'm not going to sell him. So yes, he may stink it up. He may lose some points. And then yes, of course, others who didn't start with him, who are able to get him a little bit cheaper, are the winners. But my base expectation is that, look, I'm going to have him all the way until Origin. So why just not start with him? We know that he's a gun. Yes, the draw is tough, but he's one of the most matchup-proof players. As we went through the numbers, he actually averaged better against hard opponents last year than he did the easy ones in his non-injury affected games. So when I started pulling all those numbers together, just thinking about it a bit more, I thought, look, I've got the money to afford him. It's not really hurting the rest of the team, in my opinion. Why not just start with him? So got Cleary there in the flex, and as I mentioned, it gives me some flexibility to be able to move off one of those cheapy halfbacks if things don't quite work out. But that's the team as it currently stands. All right, that's it, guys. That is the updated team reveal video. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. Please do consider subscribing if you are new to the channel. As I said, please do like and also comment on the video as well. Players that you're thinking of, any players who maybe I didn't mention who I should maybe consider. Drop all of that good stuff in the comments. And as I mentioned, please do follow me on all of those platforms, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter. But otherwise, we'll see you all in the next video. Cheers.